Now, I would like to invite my dear friend, NACD President Kim LaFleur, to take the stage for her President's Address. And I was asked by Hawaii to...
Well, good morning. It has been an amazing year of service, a tremendous year of growth and opportunity for our organization, as well as for me personally. But first, I want to start with a little story. So a year ago, we were getting ready for the banquet of our annual meeting, and I was changing my jacket, running a comb through my hair, and I had this, oh no, moment in the mirror. I was like, wait a minute, I think I just found my first bit of wisdom glitter in the side of my hair. And you know, I think that was a sign of things to come. Buckle up, you are gonna be in for a ride for the next year. So I wear that little wisdom glitter like a badge of honor. And the past year has been a time for reflection. I tend to do a lot of my best thinking in my happy place, and that's my barn. And for some of you, you might do your best thinking on a tractor, or you might do your best thinking pulling weeds in a garden, or maybe a runner, wherever your best thinking might happen to be. But for me, it's cleaning horse poop. So what am I going to say? What message do I have for our membership here? And so the first thing I want to start with is a thank you to my leadership team. There's nothing that we do as individuals here. Everything that we do for NACD is team-focused and team-based. And I said a thank you to them yesterday in our board meeting, but I need to say thank you to the leadership team, to everybody here in attendance, and want you all to know how much I appreciate everything that you bring to the table, how we hold each other accountable, and that at the end of the day, we're working for NACD, but we're also friends. And I appreciate that friendship from that leadership team more than you'll ever know. So back to that thinking in the barn. How am I going to address in just a few minutes where we've been for the past year? So I've decided instead to focus on a couple of questions. What does it mean to serve? More importantly, what does it mean to lead? Those of us who are elected district officials are here because we have been selected either at a public meeting or on a county ballot, a variety of pathways to get here, but because we've chosen to serve our community. We've chosen to put ourselves forward, not necessarily knowing that there's going to be anything personally in it for you, but more importantly, are we going to make our community a better place? With service comes responsibility. It means giving up exactly what you want and instead making choices and making decisions on what's best for the entity as a whole. Striving to make sure that you're representing people in the best way possible and making those best decisions moving forward. Now, those of you who know me well know that I'm a baseball fan. Some might say I'm a little obsessed. I know there was a big sporting event yesterday, and that's great, go Chiefs. But pitchers and catchers report this week, folks. My season is on the line. And therefore, I let the results of a baseball game dictate my mood for 162 days a year. But you know what? I wasn't always a fan of baseball. Growing up, I didn't play baseball very much. I was a runner. Left, right, repeat as necessary. Super easy, and I was a competitive runner. But I grew to love the game of baseball out in my happy place, out in the barn. Mindlessly cleaning horse stalls, picking paddocks, taking care of the ponies, and then just turning on the game just for something to listen to, for some background noise. But I grew to love the game because of the sounds. Listening to baseball on the radio is, honestly, I love, if I can't be at Fenway Park, I want to listen to Joe Castiglione on the radio. My favorite thing to do. Because it feels like you're there. You can picture, go Sox. You can picture being at the game. You can hear all the sights. You can imagine the sights just from hearing the sounds of the game. So it got me to thinking a little bit about baseball. And what does baseball have to, like, Kim, where are you going with this? What does baseball have to do with conservation? And a lot about baseball, I relate to life about successes and failures. Baseball is a game of failure. Let's take a look at the stats a little bit. There's 480,000 kids that play baseball at the high school level. Only about just under 8% of those students are going to go on to play baseball at any college level, and just 2% make it to the Division I level. From there, high school, you've got about a 0.13% chance of getting drafted to the MLB. And once drafted, 10% chance of actually making it to the big league roster. A great hitter hits a 300 average, which means you fail 70% of the time. And yet we celebrate failure, rewarding lots and lots of dollars of contracts. Dodgers just spent $1 billion in contracts on a game that is built on failure. But how do we measure the success of something that the majority of the time, you're walking back to the dugout? You're not hitting a home run, but we celebrate a sport, we celebrate a lot of sports that are not necessarily always built on success. So how does that come back to conservation? How does that game of failure relate to conservation? So let's give you some numbers there. We all know the stats, 17,000 conservation district officials in roughly 3,000 districts around the country. However, that's a lot. And when you look at the numbers, let's drill that down a little bit. The percentage of the US population that serves on your local conservation district board is 0.005%. We are an elite crowd here, but with that, we have responsibility. That 0.005% of us who have the opportunity to represent those at the local level, you can also say, are we built on failure? Well, we don't view ourselves that way, do we? We view ourselves on success. Statistically speaking, the odds are stacked against our success. There's not very many people involved in conservation who have the ability to impact the majority of Americans. 2% of Americans feed the other 98%. It's a well-known stat. We talk about that often. What is our role as conservation district leaders, as servants of those in our community, to ensure that the district officials are leading with the best intent so that we have that safe, healthy, abundant, nutritious food supply and fiber resources, clean air, clean water, all of the climate initiatives that we have been doing for generations that are now finally getting the recognition that they deserve. And those of us who are in the room here today in leadership, when you look at the number of people who have the ability to serve a conservation district, how many make it to the level of NACD leadership? 0.3352%. Not very many. So back to that responsibility. What role do you have in ensuring equitable outcomes for all? Ensuring that people who are not in this room, sitting back home, people who are at home, who are not yet at your table, but yet rely on the decisions that you make. We have a great responsibility. We have an importance to serve not only our local community, our state community, and up here at the national level, but we have the important role and responsibility of providing for the next generation. Over the last year, I've traveled about 35,000 miles, been able to visit places that I never would have thought possible. There's been some common themes on that journey, and that's resilience. We talk about climate resilience, but I want to talk to you about the resilience of people. So Webster defines resilience as the capacity to withstand or recover quickly from difficulties, or toughness. We know something about toughness in this room, because the challenges, the stats that I gave you about the improbability of making it to leadership, the improbability of being able to serve your local community, the tiny, tiny circle of us, relatively speaking, who have the ability to influence the greater community. Again, the odds are stacked against us. So how do we move forward? How do we challenge ourselves? We change the narrative, number one. We change the narrative that, unlike baseball, where that's the game of failure, our stats are not all that different, folks. But we change the narrative because we are successful, because we choose opportunity over obstacles. We choose to serve, we choose to lead, and never forget that little bit of where you've come from. We all have different backgrounds in this room, and that's what makes us unique. Large farm, small farm, rural, urban, suburban, whether or not you're a farmer and you're just interested and engaged in conservation. We all have a place here at the table, but we also have a responsibility to make sure that there's additional people who have the same opportunities that have been granted to us. There's a lot of talk about equity, and what does that mean? What does that mean moving forward? How do we bring new and diverse voices into the room? A lot of that's going to come down to our choices. It is a choice. It is a choice to welcome somebody in to our family. It's a choice to bring somebody who hasn't had an opportunity, to reach out to the underserved, the people who are completely unaware of the amazing work that's done at the conservation district level. So how do we address that opportunity? Where does growth come from? Growth comes from being under pressure. Lots of cliches about diamonds, where are diamonds formed? It's from being under pressure. And that takes a long, long time. But there's another opportunity that we have with something that maybe is a little bit rough. That's just a little grain of sand. And each one of us is a little tiny grain of sand. And what happens to a sand grain when you put it in an oyster? It makes a pearl. And that's what we are able to do. We are able to take those little tough times, those little grains of sand, the little things that get in your shoes that make you uncomfortable, and turn it into a pearl. So what does it mean to lead? What does it mean to serve? Here's another visual for you. A stone wall. Where I'm from, stone walls mark property bounds. Years and years ago, much of our state was deforested. And so there's stone walls that you can find now in forests with 100+ year-old trees. It's just, the walls have kind of, some of them have fallen apart over the years. And as a kid, I remember just randomly if you're going through the woods, you just find these random stone walls. And they're moss covered, and again, some of the pieces fall apart. But how is a stone wall made? Those walls were made to get the rocks out of the fields. It was a utilitarian need to just move the rocks. Well, we might as well make some property boundaries out of them as well. But have you ever really looked at a stone wall and how perfect they are? And you can create something perfect out of something so imperfect. That each stone is a little different, like all of us in this room. Each stone is a little different, but yet when we put us all together, we're stronger. And we have direction. And we mark boundaries, yes, but we also have the clear direction and our role and our purpose. So I like to think that conservation district officials and those involved in conservation are like the individual stones in a stone wall Individually, you're just a rock. But together, we make something really pretty. I'm going to tell you a little story about how, again, that reflective piece. When I was a teenager, like most teenagers, we all have our, we know who we are and where we want to be and where we want to go. As a 16-year-old, I had all the answers, right? Because what 16-year-old doesn't? Well, I was in a car accident when I was 16. Low impact car accident, but it shattered my leg, gave me this fabulous little cowlick when I got scalped, injured my elbow, injured my jaw. And I spent a long time being angry about why me. Why me? Why I had plans, I had goals in my life, and a car accident coupled with a doctor that didn't really know what he was doing left me with some lifelong physical challenges. And as most teenage girls do, I obsessed about the scars. The scars bothered me. I hid the scars because it was a reminder of that particular day. I don't remember much about it, but the sound of hydraulics will set me right back to the smell of hot antifreeze. I was cut out of the car and all of the things that go along with recovery. When most kids were in college, doing the college experience, I was having reconstruction done on my leg. And again, that why me? It changed my career path. What I wanted to do suddenly changed because I was no longer physically able to do it. But then I also have a great feeling for things happen for a reason. And don't get me wrong, there's not a minute that I don't wish things were different. I don't wish that if that accident didn't happen, then maybe my career path would have been different. But I can tell you, my family dynamic would have been different because I wouldn't have met my husband. We wouldn't have the family and the children that we have. I wouldn't have the career path that I have now. And I wouldn't be in this room with you today. So sometimes when we get into difficulties and how things are hard, we need to think back to remembering things happen for a reason, and sometimes they're not always all that apparent. But what I've found is that in the end, you are always right where you are meant to be. And friends, you are right where you are meant to be. You are leaders in your local community. You are leaders at the local, state, and national level. And we, collectively, are those little grains of sand that turn into a pearl, and we're the little stones that make the stone wall. The back of our business card says every acre, every American, every day. And if we truly believe that every acre, every American, every day is at the heart of what we do, then I challenge you all to bring somebody new to the next meeting. Bring them to your local meeting, to your state meeting, to your national meeting. It's been an ask that I have carried forward at every state meeting that I've been to this year. Bring somebody new into the conservation space. That 2%, can we change that statistic? Why is it only 2% of people are involved in production? There's more land than that. We need to create opportunity. We need to create opportunity for not only those in this room to be future leaders, but we need to create opportunity for those coming up and the generations behind us. I know we're up for the task. I know we're up for the challenge. And just remember, friends, you are right where you're meant to be. Thank you.